Well, welcome to January 24, 2023, and to the Tangerine SDR and Hamside technical session. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week, through the help of David, I got my GPS working, and so it's now has the mod that Tom and David have made. I appreciate that, David, so thank you. And I'm basically ready to start working on the development kit again. So that's about that. I've had some time in the hospital with my wife this week, so it's cut into my activities a little bit. But anyway, that's it for me. Next on the list, we have Nathaniel, W2NAF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thanks, Dave. I've been busy getting ready for classes, which start on Wednesday, and writing a report to my university so I can hopefully keep my job. Back to net.
I think you're in pretty good shape.
Thanks.
And next on the list is Jules, K2KGJ. Go ahead, Jules.
Good evening, Net and Bill. Okay, thanks very much for the email. I got that information, and tomorrow I'll take a look at it. I'm pretty wiped tonight from driveway clearing with the 6 or 7 inches of wet snow we had here. Back to Net.
Okay. Next on the list is somebody labeled as Shaq, which is let's see. I can't hear you.
It's Jim Farmer.
Jim,
But no audio.
I see him talking, but I can't hear him. Not yet. It shows you're not muted, but you must be on a different microphone. We can come back to you if you need some time to fix it. Okay, next on the list is Michael, AA8K. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, thank you. Greetings to everyone listening. Back to you, Dave.
Okay. Next on the list is Bill, AB4EJ. Go ahead, Bill.
Thanks, Dave. Good evening to the net. Well, worked the VHF competition this weekend, and that was fun. Worked about 80 contacts on 6 and 2 meters. So even though you'd think those bands would be dead this time of the year, there's still some activity available. Last week we met with Hyoman and various students and got Hyoman's student development team working on software to do plots and comparison plots on magnetometer data, and they'll be integrating that software into the central control system. The write-up and the code for the uploader is ready to be sent out. I sent Jules a copy of that, and so he's going to work work on getting to be a beta tester later this week. And so I'd like to invite anybody who is running a magnetometer to let me know, and I'll see it that you get the instructions on how to sign up for an account on the central control system and get uploader code and the configurator, that is the configuration module, and know how to configure it. You can still continue to upload to Dave's Linode. You can do them both, but more beta testers would be useful at this time. So I guess that's about it. Back to net.
Very good. Next on the list is Bob, N5BRG. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, hello, everybody, this evening. I dropped in on that meeting Friday afternoon a little bit, and I was really impressed at how well everyone was working together and bringing knowledge to the meeting, and it was an impressive thing. Not a lot else to report here, but back to you, Dave.
Okay. Let's see if Bill Is your mic working? And not Bill. Jim, is your mic working? Oh, I still see him talking, but I don't hear anything. I don't know. Maybe it needs to be. I don't know. You'll have to check it. Next on the list is Dan in for XWE. Go ahead, Dan.
Thanks, Dave, and good evening, all. Worked a little bit on scripts. Actually included WSJT X 2.6.1. Latest release is now available, as well as the previous release 2.5.4. And that's really about it from here. It's been kind of wet lately. Not sure what that has to do with radio. Radio has been pretty good. Amazingly, the bands have been absolutely booming the last week, at least, maybe a little bit more than that. So anyway, back to you, Dave.
Okay. Next on the list is David N1 HAC. Go ahead, David.
Good evening, everyone on the net. Today has been a lot of work. We were getting a lot of snow. Not a whole lot in total, but I had to blow the driveway twice. And it was, yeah, here in New Hampshire, we got about 7 inches plus. And one thing I wanted to mention, I wasn't able to get on the VHF UHF contest this weekend. I often do, but I was busy for most of the part. But yesterday evening, as it was winding down, I got on 6 meters to see who was around. I saw a lot of locals and then some from Florida. But the interesting thing was that everything was weak except for short bursts. Every now and then you'd get a really loud signal, but it would be less than the length of a time slot. So I figured there must have been some form of meteor shower going on, which would be an interesting line of research in our business. To the problem, of course, with FT8 in these slow modes is you wouldn't be able to identify where it was really coming from, but maybe using one of the meteor scatter modes might be an idea for a different form of beacon.
Work a lot of MSK 144 between
Right.
4 o'clock in the morning and 8 on Sunday morning. So
Yeah,
there's a lot of peaks coming in. I mean, the ping, 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 ping constantly.
right.
So
Gonna have to look into that, but that was interesting observation. You know, little short bursts of a few seconds, but not enough to decode it. So
Dave, I noticed the same thing in terms of signal strength on the on the FT8. It'd pop up maybe from a 0 to a 7, then back down to a maybe -2,
mhm,
and in alternate periods.
right. So working on the regular projects as well. AM Doppler, we're moving along on that, and our Antarctic endeavors, South Pole and otherwise. So I guess I'll give it back to the net.
Okay. Next on the list is Dylan KN6 IVW. Go ahead.
Nothing here really. Good evening to everyone, and I'll just send it back to net control.
Okay, and next on the list is JWB8 SBI. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, good evening, everybody. Not a whole lot of ham science, as a matter to report here tonight. Just a general question regarding QSLs. I worked on FT8 last weekend, 7 Delta 7, Malawi in East Africa, and there was a request was through a website for for QSL called Club Log. Does anyone have any experience with this particular one? And when you drill down through it and get to his call sign, he wants like a $5 contribution for a direct QSL. Does anyone have any experience with these type of requests, not just $1 or $2, but a little bit more than that, or from any of African countries, or with Club Log in general is what I'm searching for. Other than that, got my reservations for the Ham Science Conference here, and very much looking forward to attending that in the upcoming future here. Otherwise, nothing. That's about all the ham radio stuff I have this week. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. Back to Net.
Well, any replies to Jay's question?
That sounds normal to me. I am familiar with Club Log. I know it's used by a lot of the like major D expeditions, and D expeditions these days, if you want a direct QSL card, I think $5 is not an unreasonable thing that they might ask. So.
Okay, well, next on the list is Joe, W7LUX. Go ahead, Joe.
Good evening, all. I got the grate back online. We had a little interruption here, 57 inches of snow that I'm still dealing with. And but it is back online. And another little problem that came up, I was sitting here beside the computer, and all of a sudden smoke, flames, and computer burned up. The video card, one of the capacitors on there shorted, and right across the high current 12-volt line. And that's more than enough excitement. Back to you, Dave. Thank you.
Well, yes, I wouldn't wanted to follow up with that. Good luck. Hopefully, obviously, you're back in business. Next on the list is Jonathan, KC3EY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. There was a very, very exciting week. This was our first local VLF amateur radio message decode at our VLF receiver. So I wrote up a really nice write-up on the list, which goes through DL3 JMM's transmission campaign, his initial transmission, the initial spectral peak with the integration of the signal, and it also goes through the signal processing chain to filter out everything else and only pass the Dreamers band, then blank out spherics, and then demodulate it, run it through a mixer to get a baseband IQ output. Then resample the signal, convert it to ASCII data, and feed it into the decoder. That is the signal processing chain for reception of VLF amateur signals. It is manual, and it does use Linux programs that could be difficult to follow, difficult to use if you're not really familiar with all that. But in the end, it resulted in a successful decode. I was not able to get a successful decode on any individual transmission. So what I did was I stacked the, I was able to stack the transmissions. And what that means is that you run it through an additive mixer instead of a multiplicative mixer to get the baseband. Here, what you do is you run it through an additive mixer, and the noise being random will obviously cancel out, but the signal of interest will increase in amplitude. So this allows you a better signal to noise ratio and a better chance of decode. So what I did was I stacked the midnight UTC transmissions of the 15th and the 16th, and I got a successful decode. I also stacked the midnight and 6 a.m. UTC transmissions on Monday, the 16th, and I also got a successful decode. So this is a huge first. This is quite an accomplishment for DL3JMM, because he was able to get his signal to reach over here. Even though that the signal level was rather low, and I had to stack some transmissions, it's still quite an accomplishment. So I'm still in disbelief, but extremely happy. And incidentally, we had a solar flare that occurred on the 15th, which influenced DL3JMM's signal. It caused a sudden ionospheric disturbance on his amateur signal. Now, this has been observed before, and it's really cool when it's observed on an amateur signal. So what I've been doing is I've been trying to correlate any sort of anomalies seen in the grape data, which you would see either a Doppler shift or a decrease in amplitude in the data to correlate with that M-class flare. And I'm trying to make a stacked plot of the GOES data, the grape amplitude and Doppler shift data, and also the VLF amplitude and absolute phase data. So I would like to make a nice stacked plot of everything, so you can see the effect of the solar flare in both HF and VLF, and also stack it with the amateur signal. So which would make a really nice stacked plot. So that's currently what I'm working on now. I'm also working on hardware, and for the life of me, I cannot locate the right size heat shrink tubing that I need. So I'm going to have to keep on searching for that. I'm having some trouble getting the Python stuff to run on my FreeBSD system. There's some dependencies that I have to figure out how to get taken care of before I could run Nathaniel's and Christina's notebook to generate the plots. That's why that I was asking for any data that people might have, or if they were actually able to run that notebook themselves. So thank you for everything. Thank you for everybody that has helped me out. That's all I have. Back to the net.
Okay. Next on the list, we have, well, we talked to Jules. Oh, Dave, KD0 EAG. Dave, do you have any comments?
I don't know if you can hear me, but I haven't really got anything to say in any
Yes,
case. So
we
that's
can
all.
hear. We can hear you, Dave. Thank you.
Well, nothing to say.
Okay, next on the list, we have Scotty, WA2 DFI. Scotty, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, good. It actually works today. It's a miracle. Not a whole lot to report. I've been working on the data engine and see, I've got one here. You've probably seen these already, but that's the real thing.
Yep.
And got the power supplies checked out. I pretty much had that done last week. I was having difficulty. It looks like the board is stuck in reset for some reason, and I haven't quite figured out why. So once I get that figured out, I think it's going to go. I managed to do some FPGA loads. I finally got. I had 2 bad byte blasters.
Oh,
2 of them went bad on me. I had one that went bad, and I borrowed one from my business partner, and it's bad too. So, and all of the cheap ones from Jurassic are sold out, so you got to pay $300 for an Altera, real Altera one, which I'm probably going to end up doing because I now I have just this little cheapy one that I've got. It's a Jurassic one. I finally got the drivers loaded. I had to end up rebooting into non-signed driver mode. And boot into safe mode first and remove the offending driver that was blue screening my system, and then go into non-signed driver mode and install the driver. And that actually finally made it work. Anyway, so I can actually load an image into the data engine and I can get the LEDs to come on, but I can't get them to do anything other than exit the initial state. So to come up in the initial state. So it's getting pretty close here. It's going to be pretty soon. I'm going to have LEDs flashing and the loopback test running, and then I'll be able to send boards out to the culprits who are going to be excited to get the real thing, I hope.
very
Anyway,
good.
back to you.
Yes. And next on the list, we have Tom in 5EG. Tom?
Okay, Dave, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, just changed microphones, and so I've got some alterations here. Tested the initialization code for the synthesizer. That works correctly. So when you power up the Tangerine receiver, the synth gets automatically programmed without any user interaction. I had a long series of emails with Dave and John on programming the GPS through the I2C. And John Ackerman indicates that it can be done. It requires sending binary commands over I2C to the GPS receiver. John put out a really good document on how the GPS receiver needs to be configured. And he promised me that he'd translate that into the binary sequences that are needed to initialize that. And I'm still waiting on that. I've started writing the GPS initializer code, and I'm just waiting for the canned binary strings that code will send over to the module. So I think that's real good. John had some formatting problems in the output of the binaries. I gave him about 5 lines of Python code that prints out a nice clean OX hex digit space format so that it's real easy to import into C. And he said that's working fine for him. So he said he's got a couple of other items on his plate, but he should have the programming instructions for that out soon. So that'll be a great help, and it'll make it will eliminate the requirement for a Windows PC and eliminate the requirement for a cable and going into the micro USB. So it should make the initial setup a lot easier. So back to the group.
Well, yes, I did participate on that. We were working through the process. So there is some progress on those pieces. Anyway, so at this point, I think, I don't know of any other new people that have jumped in there. I don't see anybody. So we're open for general discussion.
I wanted to ask for comments. I changed my audio, and this is a shotgun microphone pointed at me and just off screen, and I was wondering if it sounds any better than previous audio.
it sounds more like you're in a studio.
So a little bit overbearing, I think, a little bit
Yeah,
loud.
it's a little hot.
A little bit what?
It's a little
Oh.
hot. It's clipping, but other than
Ah.
that, it sounds very good.
Okay, well, let me go in and do the adjustment here. Okay, does that sound better?
A little too much.
Now that's too low.
Okay, is that about right there?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
much better.
Much
Okay,
better.
very good.
Bring it
I
up a
can-
little bit more, please.
A little bit more. Okay, hang on.
Yeah,
It's
a little
pretty
more
sensitive.
mic gain.
Okay, how's that?
Yes.
All right.
That's
That's good.
okay.
Pretty good.
So I
Build
can
it.
I
Whoop, you dropped out. There you go.
okay. So this is the audio that I was using before. And
That's a lot of echo.
okay,
That's
and
still much louder than most of the other people here online here.
okay. Okay, very good. Well, I appreciate it. I was going to try and record a YouTube video and I couldn't stand the way the audio sounded before. Sounded like an echo chamber.
It does sound a little echoey. I don't know why that would be. Maybe try moving it a little bit further away from you or off to the side, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is kind of talking right into the mic. The problem is I'm in a room with untextured walls, a concrete floor, and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. So it's not exactly a studio, but I think the shotgun mic improves things a little bit.
You are in an echo
Yes.
chamber then.
Okay.
Yeah, Tom, it's still being clipped, so there must be a front end preamp that's running hot.
Okay, I can the interface box has got an analog knob, so that's down.
I
just
see
a
that,
little bit.
that to me, that's perfect.
Okay, now
Okay.
now kick it up on the digital end.
Okay, on the digital end, very good. Hang on.
Yes.
Audio. Okay, that's up on the digital and down on the analog.
That's
Sounds
better.
much better.
Yes, much better.
Okay, very good. Thank you for the help. I appreciate it.
Jonathan, I am trying to access the latest grape data and I can't quite remember how to do it. But I'm sending an email about it. And then once I do, I'll see if I can generate that plot for you.
All right, thank you for that, because I'm having problem with the HDF5 package and NetCDF4 headers. Because because with FreeBSD, when you install Python, Python packages and libraries, there's a separate port for that, and you don't use pip. You can use pip, but that's not recommended.
Yeah.
And if there's not a port for it available, then it doesn't really work all that well. I don't know what the HDF5 package is used for, but it's but yeah, I wanted to
One thing one thing you can try doing, Jonathan, is if you create a separate user just for doing the data analysis, and then install Anaconda in that local user. And that way you can use Anaconda and pip and whatever else and just do a local, like a virtual environment just for that user. And that way you can mess around with all this stuff and if it won't mess up anything else on your system.
well, I don't know is there a FreeBSD version of Anaconda?
There's a
I don't
Linux
believe there
version.
is.
Yeah.
That's why that I was just trying to install the regular
But
Python packages.
even if you don't use Anaconda, even if you just use you can still create a separate user account and then use a virtual environment and you can use pip and whatever else. And you can install all these Python packages in that virtual environment. And that way you should be able to at least meet the requirements and you won't risk messing up the rest of your system.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I don't really use a lot of Python anyway. Most of my stuff is in C, but I'll give that a try. But yeah, that's why that I had issues trying to figure out how to figure how to deal with these dependencies, and with FreeBSD it's a little delicate because you're supposed to use the ports Python packages. So yeah, it's a little delicate, and sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah, and that's why I'm recommending if you just create a separate user account and then install only in the local user account, you can try doing these, not using ports, and you can do it without risking, anything else you're doing on your system. But I bet you can get it to work if you do it that way.
You mean like a FreeBSD jail?
Something like that. I really mean you just create a separate user account with inside of that home directory, you should be able to set up a Python virtual environment within that home directory. And then you install everything to that virtual Python environment. So make sure you don't use sudo to install anything. As long as it just stays within that one home directory, it won't affect anything else on your system.
I'll have to I see it's a little different with FreeBSD. What you're talking about with a separate user account is often accomplished in what are called jails on FreeBSD, where there are independent compartmentalized environments that you could run and install different sorts of software, and it won't affect the main system. Because I had all this installed when I was taking your DSP class.
Yeah.
And I was able to run the notebooks on my FreeBSD system and manipulate them through the IPython interface. In fact, I as a test, I ran the one of your assignments just to see if it would run, and it did. Everything ran fine, but I guess whatever HDF5 is used for, that was a dependency of the AMSI PSWS Python install.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what I'm using HDF5 for, but
okay. Yeah, because I'll try to do that, and I'll try to figure out the dependency issue. But even if I run it in a jail, that issue is still going to be present if the dependency isn't met. So I'll have to figure this out. And but in the meantime, if you can run that data with multiple grape stations and the GOES X-ray data, does your script automatically download the GOES X-ray data, or do you have to provide it?
I think it automatically downloads it.
Okay. Because once I got it running, and once I got it generating the plot, what I wanted to do was I wanted to figure out how to generate another plot of VLF data from data from the system, and then that'll generate a all these stacked plots, which will show the same thing. That's kind of what I'm trying to go by, because I know that you were asking me to figure out, like, what are ways that we could kind of correlate things with the grape data and the VLF system, and solar flares are one of them. And this would be a really nice display, and I wanted to hopefully put it in my ham site presentation. I think that would be really, really cool for people to see. But yeah, I'll have to figure out this issue. But for the time being, when you get a chance, if you or maybe someone else, I don't know who else has this software running other than you and Christina.
Yeah, I'm probably the best person to run it right now. The main thing that's preventing me from running it is I don't have, it's January 15th of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have that grape data downloaded. And I think the way that we have the way you access the grape data is a little awkward. And so I just emailed asking for instructions on that again. So hopefully once I get those instructions, hopefully I just change a few things in the script and hopefully it, does it. So.
Yeah. And then, yeah, because once you get that running, then I could work on getting that running on my system, and then figuring out the code to generate time series plots.
Yeah.
Because is the data in CSV format with the two columns?
Yeah, the grape data is in CSV format. Is it in 2 columns?
Like
It might be like 3 columns or something like that, but
okay. Yeah, one would probably be the timestamp, and then the other would be amplitude data, and the other would be
right. Am I showing the grape data now?
Yeah.
You're showing a email and a file browser.
Try that. Yeah, so this is a CSV. So it's the timestamp, the frequency, and the voltage. So it's three columns.
okay, I see.
Yeah. And I think the goes. And the goes data is in net CDF format.
When I looked on the GOES website, it had JSON data.
It depends. There's probably multiple websites, and it probably depends on where you get it.
Oh, okay.
When I wrote this, and it changes, it seems to change like every couple of years or something. So last time I wrote this code back in, last about 6 months ago, maybe. And I had to rewrite it from when I had written it, 2 or 3 years ago, because things had changed slightly. So it seems to be a moving target.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think as soon as I hear back from Christina or Dave Swartz, I should be able to get the latest grape data and hopefully create a new plot for your day.
Okay. Yeah. This is a really big help. So I thank you for that. Because I think if I could get get all this to plot. I think it'll make a really nice plot. And I
Yeah,
think
I agree.
it'll definitely show some really really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Because
If you can get my code to run on your computer, I think it will be used because it'll shading the nighttime versus the daytime, and you know it includes a lot of nice functionality that way.
yeah, because I could because what I wanted to do was just pick out that single timestamp, and then I should be able to see it.
Another way you can do it, Jonathan, is you do have access to the Ubuntu machine behind me, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
actually run my Jupyter lab on an Ubuntu machine, and then I just tunnel the port over SSH. And so you could just install the software on that machine, which you probably, if you have enough CPU cycles and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of CPU left.
Yeah. So I mean, you don't want to like wreck your data collection over there, but you know, that machine, all my code is developed on Ubuntu. So if you run it on the machine behind me, you'll have, you know, basically the same operating system that I'm using, and you'll be able to get the same stuff. And if you want to create a separate, you know, user account for doing the data analysis versus the data collection, just to kind of keep things a little separate, you're welcome to do that.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Yeah.
It may be easier than fighting with FreeBSD.
Yes. I agree. I was gonna ask if he couldn't just use his second computer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
wanted to say
use-
that I enjoyed your write-up, Jonathan, and nice job on this. And I was going to mention too, you probably know it, but the stacking technique is what they use in radio astronomy for looking for pulsars with software packages like Presto. And
exactly right.
things don't go well for you in your job, the people at SETI may be wanting you to help them sort out those signals.
Yeah, pulsar astronomy was something I plan on getting into once I get a system up and running. But I'm completely new to that. However, one of my goals in life is to be able to detect a pulsar at least just once.
Well, it's addictive. After you picked up one or you copied one, and your goal is to get the next one, and then pretty soon you're off to the races trying to see how many you can copy.
Yeah. This sort of stuff can be very addictive. I know it is with VLF, but yeah, one of my goals is definitely to copy some pulsars, and you know, you're exactly right. After the dedispersion, that's usually when the stacking occurs, and I believe they stack observations. Well, I mean, it depends, but however long your observation is, they usually stack that, and then, you know, with enough stacking, you'll develop a nice little peak. Kind of exactly like it was with the VLF messages. But I mean, this, so I mean, you know, with these sorts of signal processing techniques and weak signal detection techniques like stacking, it opens up the VLF band for amateurs. So that's why this is so exciting.
Yeah, I think your efforts could be good, a good little article too for QEX or QST as well. I encourage you to look at that.
Yeah, I was actually I had an issue of QST at my on my desk at work, and I was reading it today, and I was thinking, geez, you know, if I were to write an article about this, this would get EBNOT and VLF amateur transmissions, you know, out to the general amateur radio public. So that's in the works. I owe an article to the Inspire Journal. The Inspire project was originally a project for the for a VLF experiment on the Space Shuttle Challenger, and NASA continued it, and they sell VLF receiver kits, and every year they come out with a new journal with different articles, you know, with VLF stuff, radio stuff, different sorts of topics, and the editor, I was contacted by the editor to for an article, so I owe her an article on the VLF system, and the next one will probably be amateur VLF. So that's definitely in the works.
Good.
Yeah, which brings up the bigger point here of if we can, as a group or individuals, put some articles forward for QST or QEX, I think that would be a great idea.
And they're good resume stuffers too.
Oh yeah. Nathaniel, you probably got half a dozen right now that you could clean up or edit or even just turn in as is to QEX and QST.
I'm writing as fast as my little fingers can type.
Oh, by the way, is who's acting for the conference? Who's the acting as public information? Do you have anybody acting as public information?
See, I've invited I have invited people from CQ and ARRL to come. I don't have anyone for certain for those yet. Jason Johnston is also, he will be there live streaming everything from the Ham Radio 2.0, just like in the previous years. I do have actually, I don't think I showed people this yet. Did I show this group the ham radio display that we put on at the University of Scranton?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, I did show this group. I can't remember who I showed and who I didn't.
Oh,
The hallway and the hallway displays, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So you
yes,
did,
that was last week. Very
that's awesome.
impressive.
Thank you. Yes. So good. Yeah, that's right. We did it last Monday. So I had just gotten it done right before this telecon.
Did you show it to the Murgosh club?
They're the ones that set it up.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, so they definitely saw it. And I did create, since they did it, I also created a poster that kind of explains the whole thing too. So.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, I can show that to everyone. I showed that to the Thursday afternoon group.
I also posted a write-up to the Murgosh groups.io page on the amateur transmission, as well as the chorus event as well. So with the Mergosh Club, I would like to do a club VLF transmission when we're doing a field day event. You know, when we're out, you know, wherever in a remote area, and we have a lot of land. If we get some ground stakes and some wire, and I could bring my rig, perhaps we can get a transmission that could, you know, reach overseas and reach Europe. So I was hoping we could do something like that as a club.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
How complicated is it to set up one of these ground stake sorts of things?
Well,
Antennas.
so the antenna itself is, or what you have to set up. You put two stakes in the ground, one at one end and one at the other end. And those are your antenna terminals, and the connectivity between those two stakes creates a loop, and that's what actually does the radiating. So the radiating comes from the ground.
Yeah.
And you're only radiating milliwatts at best. Even though you might pump in, you know, hundreds of watts, you're only going to radiate milliwatts due to the inefficiency of the antenna. But then what you need is you need to have your rig, which is a Raspberry Pi and a good GPS signal, because they have to generate that GPS locked carrier and phase transitions, which is how the message is sent, but it definitely has to be GPS locked, or else it's not going to work. But the challenge that I see is the Raspberry Pi has to set itself from NTP, so we're going to have to get the Raspberry Pi a temporary internet connection just to set its clock. Because if it's not set right, then the program won't work. You have to have a running NTP. So we just need a temporary connection to get that going, and then we could steer it from GPS.
Why can't you get the timestamp from the GPS?
Well,
why do you need NTP? If you have, I mean, you can use a GPS to create your own NTP server. So why do you need?
Well, so when you're booting up the Raspberry Pi and the GPS is also booting up as well.
Right.
And it doesn't have an immediate fix.
No.
So it's going to take some time. So you can use the GPS pulse per second and the GPS binary data, and you could feed that into NTPD. But you have to, but in these situations, it's better to power up the Raspberry Pi later, after the GPS is booted and gotten a fix.
Right.
So even though you might delay it, you know, like 30 seconds or whatever, you have to make sure the GPS has a fix first before NTP can actually use the time.
Right. But you can get the whole system started, and then you can tell it to sync.
Yeah, you're right.
So, I mean, it is possible. So
yeah,
and I mean, and certainly getting an internet connection is not unreasonable these days. I mean, I have like my phone set up so you can use it as a hotspot when you need to. And I'm sure a lot of other people have it too.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't think it's a requirement for what you need.
Well, it might not be, but I never really did any experiments yet.
Yeah.
On that, but I remember when I was powering up my VLF system, and there was no internet connection. The capture program would not work because it required NTP to be set accurately, and when it did not get a fix, and the capture program was
Yeah. I remember when I was trying to send some things down to Antarctica and I had to feed the NTP from the GPS. The NTP program would sometimes refuse to set if the offset was too great, but you could override that and tell it to set no matter what.
Right, yeah, that's how mine is set. You put a Tinker Panic 0 in the config file. That's how mine is set, but you know, as you mentioned, that's a minor issue, and once we get the NTP server running and have it, you know, running a while, then you know, we could then we would be able to get this running.
Right.
The trouble is with for greater success of decode, you would want to use a longer symbol length, and it takes hours to send these messages. So even though that it's a couple characters, it could take 4 hours.
Right.
But like you could reduce the character count, say to 3 characters, and then reduce the symbol length where it might take 2 hours to send versus 4. So that's something that others have experimented with. So but what I would also like to do once we get this perfected, it would be cool to do a VLF transmission with the University of Scranton Club too.
I totally agree.
Yeah. But again, yeah, this is like the forefront of
yeah.
You know, amateur radio where you really roll your own, and it's really cool to be able to kind of do the signal processing yourself. You know, you're kind of used to the radio doing that processing, but here you do it yourself in software, and you know, once you know how to use it, it's actually very, very powerful. But yeah, eventually I would like to get some different groups involved in sending messages.
Yeah, I think that's really great, Jonathan.
I picked up 2 ground rods myself to install to try to move in this direction too. So I'm hoping to I have a trenching machine. I'm gonna trench a ditch, I guess, from the place where my radio is going to be located out each direction. How far apart are you putting your probes? I guess the further the better, is that right?
Right, yeah.
And do you orient them north, south?
Well, it depends on where you want your message to go. Because the way Byrne did it with his, he oriented it so it was radiating east and west. So this allowed the receivers in America to, you know, pick it up, but he tries different sorts of orientations, and a lot of the receivers in Europe are able to decode it. But you know, he's also trying, like, you know, different sorts of impedance matching, and also you know, different sorts of configurations with his power amplifier and feedback, because it's also best if you're able to pull a feedback signal from the transmitter output, you know, like a small loop or a probe to capture a feedback signal, and that keeps the internal loops of the synthesizer program running, and staying tuned. And in this way, the stability of the carrier and the phases will be that much more stable. So that's also one of the reasons for the success is that when you pull feedback from the power amp, the synthesizer can adjust for any sorts of changes in the loop and maintain that stability over time. In fact, if you run it from a 1 pulse per second signal, it's mandatory to have a feedback signal. You could pull it from the output of your sound card, and that's fine. That would be the minimum configuration. But for a much better configuration, you would want to pull the feedback from your power amp.
And is there a particular place where this stuff is being discussed where, like you said, he was experimenting with different impedance matching? I've worked on that some myself on spice simulations and winding ferrite core transformers or matching networks for the antennas. Is that information on what he's done published in a reflector of some sort?
Yeah, it's actually on the if you go to groups.io, it is on the VLF Natural Radio group. So you would go to that website and just search for VLF Natural Radio, and you will see.
I can find it with that.
Yeah, because that's where all the action is actually going on. So all the amateur transmissions and everything like that, everybody kind of stays there, and you're welcome to actually ask him, because sometimes he doesn't give a lot of details about his setup. So you're more than welcome to actually ask him, and it would be cool. It'd be really cool, Bob, if eventually, maybe you could build your own EBNOT rig and do some transmissions from where you are. So we're always looking for more volunteers and more people who'd be interested in doing this. This way we could have more amateur signals to decode. The only thing is that there's a learning curve to it, and when you're starting out, you kind of have to read the forums and read Paul's documentation and start playing with things a little bit to get an idea. That's why that we don't have a lot of people right now, because there's a big learning curve to it. But once you get all that down, you could actually participate. So
okay, great.
And the hope is that I'm going to have a working EBNOT rig for the HamSci conference or workshop. That's the hope. Just got to find that heat tubing that I lost.
Look at what Scotty just did.
He's flashing LEDs. Got his reset cleared.
Bad resistor on the 25 megahertz clock. That was one problem. And still haven't figured the reset, but I just removed the reset. And what you can't see up here is these LEDs up here that are saturating your screen. They're actually counting in binary. And then these are the RFM detector LEDs that are I'm just alternating them at about 6 hertz. So progress.
Check your capacitor on the reset line.
I don't have a capacitor.
That's awesome.
I have a reset monitor chip that's supposed to be pulling it down for some like 100 milliseconds, then releasing it, and it's not. So don't know what that is yet. It's an STM part, STM 1818R. Used that before and it's worked fine, so I don't know what the problem is. If I can't really get these to, the lids are really too bright. I need to change the resistor values, but you could read them in the next county, so that's okay. So
I like it.
first successful load of something that actually does something other than just look at you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yes, congrats. That's a great feeling to have that, have something that's
Yeah, so
seems to have been dead come to life.
yeah, get to the point where I know the last project I had that used an Aria 10, it was weeks and weeks and weeks before I got to load. It was
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it was horrible. I was thinking maybe I'm gonna just have to go to the Cayman Islands and disappear, because if I can't make the stupid thing load, then it's like time to get a new career, because there's only 4 wires to make it work. And so what it turns out on that part was that if you don't pull the M cell lines to one of 3 valid states, it ignores the JTAG port.
There's a good ham radio super context station down there too.
Yeah, so I'd have to be anonymous though, because I'd be hiding out. But we ended up getting it working, so it just was very painful. This much less painful.
That's really good.
So that's a good start anyway.
Scotty, I'm looking at the data sheet for that reset part. It's only 3 pins. You can't do much wrong with it.
Yeah, well, this is the
Either
problem.
either
I can do that
the
with only 3 pins, you know.
either the voltage to it is too low, or something else is holding the reset line.
I'm gravitating towards something else holding the reset, because I took the switch off. Okay,
Yeah.
thinking that was the problem. I think we got the pin out of the switch wrong, and so I suspect that I may have pins 1 and 2 are actually bridged together on one side and 3 and 4 on the other. And if the switch is connected up wrong, it'll be holding it down with the traces on the PC board. And so if that's the case, a quick knife cut will be in business.
Is this true of all the boards?
Yep.
Okay, so it's not just a solder bridge or something.
Well, I haven't powered up every board yet. I just powered up 2 of them, and they behave the same.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
and the reset line on the scope, it's pulled low. So somebody's pulling it low, and the STM part shouldn't be, because it's got it's got 3.3 volts on it, and it's like a 2.7 volt detector, and the ground pin's grounded. So somebody else is pulling it down.
Right.
So it's like I had a 1960 RCA color TV, round color picture tube, and I had a short on one of the power supplies, a short on a bypass cap, and there was like 38 capacitors on that run, all throughout the whole chassis. So
Nice.
trying to find the one bad one, it's not fun.
Nope.
But the good news is that reset pin that goes to things like the clock module connector, which there's no clock module plugged in. It goes to the Raspberry Pi connector. There's no Raspberry Pi module plugged in. So it goes to empty pins. So I'm always convinced that it's the switch pin out. So we'll find that in the next 5 minutes. So carry on.
Right.
I can read the book by this thing.
I think I'm going to say 73 for tonight.
Yep, I think I will too, and focus on this, trying to get this working.
Thank you.
Before you pull the plug, Bob, N5 BRG, are you
Yes, sir.
good? Are you good at ARRL